Okay, great. So we're recording now. So can we get a quick affirmation from everyone with a thumbs up that everyone's okay with having this video shared publicly? Great. Thank you, everyone. Awesome. So to begin with, I want to give James a couple minutes to share with us. So that'll give us a little context for, some of the things we're going to be talking about. So James, please take it away, however you'd like to share, whatever you'd like to share.
So actually, let me disconnect because I'm gonna have to move here.
Okay.
I can't run the meeting.
Okay, cool. So we'll give James a minute while we're waiting for him to move. I guess let's, I haven't even honestly looked at the agenda that you guys prepared for the meeting. Did you guys prepare an agenda for today?
Yeah, I prepared an agenda. Yeah.
Thank you, Tatiana, for doing that. I kind of figured that you had, but I didn't want to be assumptive. Thank you for doing that. Let's take a look at that, and then we'll let James join us again when he can. And again, since some of the things we'll be discussing will be based on that, we want to let James, share with us first.
So for the agenda, this is what I had. Just the admin and then an update on the handbook. I know this was I know we pushed back the date, but I was wondering if you had another update on that.
Thank you for asking, because I know it shouldn't just fall off the radar being such a big thing. It's, I was sharing with you guys last time, I knew I was saying this past Monday, yesterday, but I was also knowing how challenging that was going to be. We're still in a really challenging place. I would love to say next Monday, but I think if we want to be really realistic, I think we could say by a week from Monday, and we could shoot for Monday sooner than that. What is that date? Let me look. So we're talking about the 25th. So I would say by the 25th at the latest, but also, we can shoot again for the 18th. But I don't want to keep, setting expectations and not meeting them. So let's say by the 25th, we should have enough bandwidth to get that done. Okay, good. Thank you for keeping us on top of that. I know it can be a little uncomfortable when I'm the person that's being held accountable, but I appreciate that you're doing that.
Okay, and then the next thing I had with me. And the next thing I had was just, I know last meeting we wanted to talk about HubSpot and its Salesforce. And I just wanted to see what everyone found.
Yeah, I forget, what did we say exactly last week? Where did we leave that off? Can we look at the minutes from last week and what we said about that?
Well, I put it in here. We wanted to spend 30 minutes comparing Salesforce and HubSpot, finding the differences, pros and cons.
Okay, good. So that was an independent assignment that each person had to spend 30 minutes looking into it and seeing what the pros and cons were.
Yes.
Okay, great. And just to be clear, and I hope you guys found this, that it's not sales source, it's Salesforce.
Yes.
It's FORCE.
Mm-hmm.
There's no U in there.
Yes.
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 So that, that's the industry leader. So so who did get a chance to spend 30 minutes comparing them and getting the pros and cons and the main differences?
I did some of it. I looked over and I'll share my screen really quickly.
Great.
So I found like a couple different ones. I looked at the different reviews over like what they had to say about CRMs and which were like the better ones. And I found there was one called Less Annoying CRM, which was, I wouldn't say the greatest, but I think in terms of where we are at with our organization, I think HubSpot was probably the better one because Salesforce was more, it's like harder to maneuver if you're not well trained in it. And especially with the way we have new members ongoing all the time, I think it would be easier to use HubSpot. That's what I kind of got from it based on like all the other different resources I looked at and all the other ones I saw. I thought HubSpot was the best one.
I'm really glad to hear that. I'm glad to know we've picked the best. That's great. Thank you for doing that research, Tatiana, and getting all of that information. That's really, really great. So just so we know where that is, where is that document located in our Drive tree?
It is currently not in one, but I will add it later. I will add it into the.
You can figure out, and then you can
Yeah.
send us in the WhatsApp chat. You can send us the link to it, and then we can find it. So that's great. Thank you for really looking into that and doing that work. That's really wonderful. Awesome. Isa2, did you get a chance to look into it and come to any conclusions?
Yes, I was actually writing in the chat right now. And when I clicked the microphone, it all went away because I'm in the library setting, so I can't. But yeah, I'm gonna just say it real quick. I know that HubSpot is easier to use. The platform is very intuitive. And like HubSpot is also known by a lot of business owners, so that's a good thing for us. The only problem with HubSpot is that it was like on a website that I found it, they said that as you build your list, the cost of HubSpot will go up. So the more I guess, like we work on HubSpot, like, how can I say it? The more lists we have, the more it's gonna cost us. That was one con that I saw, but I have to recheck that if it is true or not. For Salesforce, I know that it's very comprehensive. It's also easy to use, but people, the website that I went on said that HubSpot was easier. And it's also one of the most popular CRM solutions. So it's very easy to find like sales reps, you know. But yeah, if you need to like purchase add-ons. So whatever you want to add to your account, you will need to purchase it. That's one of the cons of Salesforce.
Of Salesforce or HubSpot?
Yeah, Salesforce.
Salesforce, right? Whatever add-ons we want, we have to pay for it.
Yeah, I have to pay for it.
Right, right. Okay, good. I appreciate you guys looking into it and getting all of that insight. It sounds like it's pointing us in a certain direction. So, Isa2, do you have any place that you wrote down any of the details that you just shared so that we can have it in a Google Doc or in the same doc with Tatiana's?
Yeah, I can add it to Tatiana's document. If she just sends me the link, I can add it over there.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, great. That's great. So let's have all of that written down so we have all of that for reference. But it sounds like as a business team, it sounds like we're in agreement that we should continue using HubSpot, at least for the near term, that there's no compelling reason we'd want to go to Salesforce, at least in the short term, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we'll thank you guys for looking into that. It's awesome. I'm glad we could confirm that. So, okay, perfect. Okay, let's continue on then with the agenda. Thank you, Tatiana. That's great. And thank you guys for the follow-up. Let's actually give you guys some applause for that. That's awesome. Appreciate you guys following up and doing that and getting that done. That's important. We need to definitely follow up on these things. That's awesome.
Yeah, okay, so for the next thing I had was about Slack and tracking time, just to see how everything's going. And the biggest thing was when we're gonna officially transfer over to start using not HubSpot, Slack instead of using WhatsApp for
Right.
like sending out any messages. Like, when do we want to make this transition clear, or do we want to get tracking time done first, or what kind of ideas do we have on that?
Yeah, those are really good points, and I'd really like to have James chime in on those. So let me send him another message and see if he can get back on. Okay. Hopefully James will come back, and let's wait on that till he comes back, so he can give us some insight on some of those things.
I think we can move on, maybe like go off of Slack, because the next one was onboarding documents, which kind of includes Slack. So we can push back on that. And then we can go talk about the team hours. I know last week, we want to designate someone who would send out a message, or who would be upkeeping with everyone putting their hours in on time. So would like anyone be willing to, send a quick message on like Fridays to like remind everyone about the hours?
Does it have to be Fridays?
It could be like
hours, because
I
I
think-
thought we used to put it in by Monday at 12.
Yeah, we're still asking that people complete it by Monday at 12, but people have been saying that getting reminded at 9 a.m. on Monday isn't necessarily giving them notice to like carve out time. So if they aren't remembering, we want everybody to have it in their calendar or whatever, so we don't even have to send a reminder. But we're sending a reminder just to kind of help people. So what we talked about was that sending the reminder on Friday might be a better way to remind people in advance than waiting until Monday morning.
Okay, I don't mind doing it. I can do it every Friday.
You can do it every Friday? Okay, great. So I think ISA2, the other part of it is to actually duplicate the sheet. So go ahead when you get a chance. Hey, James, thanks for joining us again. When you get a chance, ISA2, just duplicate the sheet to make a new sheet and then change the information, because that way, let me just show you very, very quickly. So for next week, when you're going to make next week's sheet, just come down here, week of 10/11, and duplicate the sheet and make it the week of, oops, took too much off. Week 10/18, and then when you're on that sheet, then you simply zero out the first one and oops, and drag it down, and then drag that column of zeros all the way across. And now you've got a fresh sheet with all the calculations there and all the names there. So that's the easiest way to go ahead and duplicate the sheets and set up our next week. Okay. And so we're actually going to carve that little piece out and make that a little tutorial video. So who's taking the minutes for today's meeting? Tatiana? Okay, so great. So Tatiana, can you make a note that like what I just showed should be pulled out and shared somewhere is how we do a sheet. And then we're gonna come up with a solution. Alexis was looking into it about having a timer, because right now, Tatiana, when I told you to do that, you don't know exactly where that falls in the time stamping of the video at this point, because you don't know the exact time. So we want to like get a timer that we're running during the meeting. So when I say that, you can look at the timer, which is going to be approximately the timestamp in the future, so that you'll be able to find it quickly and easily. Just so you know. Isatu, you wanted to say something?
When do we want to have the hours by? Sunday or?
No, by Monday at noon still is when we want them by. But I think also if you're going to be the person reminding on Friday, maybe on Monday at I don't know, 3 o'clock or something, you can remind the people that that they didn't put it in yet, which is a few people this week. So you know, we want to make sure that everybody is doing this regularly by noon on Monday. Oh, well, today is Monday essentially. So we're not actually at noon yet. So they're not even late yet, but basically you'll look at 3 on Monday, or you could do 3 today if there's anybody that hasn't gotten it done by 3 o'clock today, to send a reminder message along with a link to it. Can you do that?
Yeah, because they were supposed to upload it yesterday because today's Tuesday.
Yeah, but we made yesterday a holiday. So today is really the first day of our week. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day to everybody. You guys get to celebrate. I don't know if that has anything to do with your hair, Tatiana. I was seeing, I wasn't sure if it was the lighting or celebrating.
Yeah, it was a spur of the moment, and I just did it.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Okay, cool. So let's continue with the agenda. Well, now that we have James here, let's jump back to the parts that we're waiting on. And let's start by having James take a couple minutes, and then we'll dive into Slack and everything else.
You want me to share what I shared this morning?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so essentially due to some personal issues, I'm gonna have to take some time off and you know, concentrate on some things for myself. So I'm gonna step back from the team, and hopefully once all that's cleared up, I'll be able to come back. So that's where we're at. I want to thank you guys for working so hard with me and putting up with all my crazy ideas and going down all that. So thank you guys. Yeah, appreciate it. And I love working with you guys. So there's that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, James. And I think, you know, still processing it. Thank you for sharing the hearts, Tatiana and Isa too. You know, I'm still processing it. I think it would be appropriate at this point for us to do our acknowledgements for James, since this will be the last business team meeting that James will be in for a while, presumably, hopefully shorter rather than longer. You know, it's an open invitation from me and from the team to have James rejoin us, you know, whenever he's able to. I really honor and appreciate all of the ideas and the thoughts and the whole worlds that you're bringing in, James. You know, it's that you have been, and that, you know, will continue to grow in our project with or without you. I know that now you are championing them so well in ways that, you know, we haven't had a champion yet. So I really appreciate that, you know, for the systems thinking and the ideas of how to implement these systems and all of that. We, like you know, shared in our interview, you could see where we're really on the cutting edge of what's, you know, out there in terms of the idea of it and putting those ideas into practice, and more so, you know, the ways that we're about to share with the world what we're doing are so, much around these systems. So I know you'll, jump back in whenever and however you can, little bits here and there or whatever it looks like for you. I do want to acknowledge and thank you for really awakening a lot of that within the project right now, for bringing that energy in and being a carrier of the torch for the systems thinking, the ways that you, anticipated putting it in, really direct ways for Slack, which we'll talk about in this meeting, but also, the ways we're envisioning down the road for the website and the way this website would function and the different algorithms and all the different, things and systems in place. So, yeah, I just want to, absolutely thank you for the work and the time that you've put in, in this relatively short amount of time. You've made tremendous impact, both in the work that you've brought, but also just in the energy and the consciousness that you've brought to the team. And I think I speak for everyone on the team in saying that we've really appreciated having you and that we will all miss you for sure. So thank you so much for everything that you've brought to us. I really honor and appreciate it deeply. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Jared. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'll also say a quick little thing. Thank you, James, for being a co-leader with me. And you really opened my eyes into seeing different things I should consider when managing a project, especially with Slack. There were some things I didn't even think about, which was really good that you made me open my eyes to it. And also for all the great different ideas you've come up with and helping driving the organization going to a better place. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Thank you for sharing those things.
Thank you, Tatiana. I appreciate that.
And I'll read the chat that Isa2 sent. It was really nice working with you. Thank you for your hard work. We'll miss you. Hope to see you back soon. It's very nice, Isa2.
Thank you, Isa2. I appreciate that.
Yeah, awesome. Great. Okay, so so in that context, let's go back into the agenda and go back to Slack and some of the other things that we were holding off waiting until James was with us to talk about.
So yeah, the next thing we had was talking about Slack and kind of just seeing when we would officially start moving on to using Slack instead of WhatsApp and kind of that process, or do we want to use tracking time first or figure that out? Just figure something along those lines. Get it clear.
Yeah, and actually before we answer that or talk about that, I do want to just see, since it's right before it in the minutes or in the agenda, James, did you happen to look into HubSpot versus Salesforce? You want to share what you found around that?
Yeah, I mean, I've got some material as well, and I looked for the comparison, so I can share some links as well. But ultimately, I think that both are really good, and it comes down to the functionality that we are, as a team, specifically looking for. I think since we've done so much work on HubSpot, I think HubSpot is the winner, so we don't spend too much time on it. Both have a lot of functionality that are useful. Salesforce is more well established and has a long run establishment, and has has this credibility within big enterprises. So as we start, if and when we get to the point where we're dealing with a mass amount of individuals, Salesforce would be very, very useful, just because they've got I would say, the infrastructure to handle such a huge amount of people if and when our team would grow to that point. And then obviously on the other end, dealing with a CRM that has to deal with so many people. But I think for now, HubSpot, because our team is so small, and then there's the aspect of paying for the service, HubSpot is relatively cheap and has, again, a functionality for a smaller team. I think HubSpot is the clear winner.
Okay, cool. Thank you for taking the time to evaluate them and look into them and compare. That's really, really great. We really appreciate you doing that. And you came to the same conclusion that Isatu and Tatiana did. So that makes it really simple, unanimous. So we'll stick with that. Awesome. Thank you, James. Thank you for that. Okay, cool. So now let's dive back into the rest of the agenda.
Okay, yeah. So then going on to Slack and tracking time. How do we want to go on from there?
So I can talk a little bit about that, and then we can sort of as a team decide how to proceed. So because we have done quite a bit of work on tracking time, and it's essentially set up where we would have to migrate everybody just like we did with Slack, which is essentially just sign them up with the emails and set them up with the accounts, set up the application, sort of like almost essentially the same thing we did with Slack. It's just we're setting up the functionality for the application itself. But then again, like I said last week, we would have permission issues. We would have the subscription issues where we would have to pay for the functionality of the application. And then as I spent some time looking over the weekend, I've come to the conclusion that tracking time is probably not the best app itself out there on the market. There are other applications out there that have that are considered probably better for the functionality that we're looking. You know, when I say better, I mean there's pros and cons that you could weigh out. So there's just it's a very competitive market. So again, it's sort of I think it's up to the team ultimately how we're gonna implement these things and which admin per se is going to learn how to function with these things and be the go-to person that's going to say, okay, we have an issue. I know how to run this application and I can handle it moving forward from here. And that's really what I think is the key with these applications, right? Who's the go-to admin that has a functional knowledge and can take care of these issues and will know at least the basic functionality, right? Once we decide which application is at least the most beneficial for us. Does that make sense how I'm describing how we would go about choosing? Even if we do decide to continue with tracking time. So it's not that tracking time would be detrimental towards the team, but again, it's like once we commit to it, we're going to have that person that should be committed to knowing how tracking time works. And, that would be our tracking time admin so that, they are there for whatever issues come up. And it's sort of like across whatever application we decide to go for. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that because that's been, the big question in my mind for a long time, whether tracking time is the ultimate solution for us. And, I'm very interested when you say it may not be, and I definitely want to have us do that more thoughtful consideration to make sure that we're choosing the right one. Do you have like some links you can send us of some of the things that you looked at or anything written down, James, that we can use as a starting point to do some evaluation of the different systems out there?
So yeah, I'll put up an article that covered probably like I think it was 15 or 16 of the most recent applications that kind of are that did a good job describing them and kind of comparing them and giving me a really good idea. And like I said, it's just one article, but I thought it did a good job of kind of giving an overarching view of a lot of the kind of just giving an overview of what's out there and giving everybody a base coverage of what to expect.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I think what I'd like to do, if this works for you two, Tatiana and Isatu, is to have you guys over this coming week essentially do what you did with HubSpot versus Salesforce and do that with all of tracking time and all of these other ones that James is giving us a starting point with. And, like James is saying, just not only, use that one article as a starting point, but go and find at least another article or two to get some more comparative data. And then I think maybe each of you come up with like the top 3 that you each like, independent from each other, so we can see if there are some matches across the 2 of you. And then be able to, kind of start to hopefully find our way to our optimum solution. I'm wondering, James, if, within your, 5 hours of available time this week, that might be worth taking a half hour, or some amount of time to maybe, and maybe you already have it, what your top 3 choices would be out of the ones that you looked at or out of the ones in that article. But I think if whoever can this week that can contribute, that will help us get by next week to a further place with that. What are your guys' thoughts about that?
Yeah, it shouldn't be, that shouldn't be too big of a deal. I think that, but just to make sure you guys keep it in mind is ultimately whichever app you choose, the thing is to keep in mind that there should be a sort of the designated admin person that will, will learn to run that system and really keep it under control, because that seems that we're no matter whether it's Slack, whether it's tracking time or what have you, it's like that one person is going to really have to be familiar and kind of, whether it's on the research team, business team, or what have you, they're going to have to really be familiar and be the go-to person for questions and setup and what have you.
Yeah, and it's great that you're saying that, which is why we need to be so precise about the app that we choose, because it's not just that one person and their devotion of time, because that's what it would be if we were not institutionalizing the knowledge and the expertise. But we need to have each person that works on it contribute to our collective knowledge base, whether it's our customized tutorials or our tips or whatever it looks like, little video, whatever. We need to build our own kind of repository of best practices around these apps for our organization. And so anytime we have to change to a new app, essentially we're throwing out all the work of all the people before. So we really want to avoid doing that and really choose the best from the beginning, so that we can be building something that's enduring and allows us to keep benefiting from in the future. So any thoughts about that particular thing before we go back to you guys giving your top suggestions?
Just mirroring what you said, making sure that when we start to really have it pinpoint exactly, and that way when we do start to document things, it's documented for all eternity essentially.
Yeah, that we're building something rather than something that we're later going to throw away. Okay, great. So Isa2 and Tatiana, is that something that you guys could do, spend some time, either a half hour or an hour this week? We'll have to figure out what the appropriate amount of time is. Let's look at your guys' hours for this week. Well, let's, at the end of our meeting, as we're seeing what's all on our plate in terms of Slack and what we need to do with Slack and stuff like that, let's figure out, whether a half hour or an hour is more appropriate devotion of time to that particular task. So I think let's get back in terms of the Slack part of it to what each of the team leaders has to do right now, and what each of the teams has to do, and some of the permissions types of things that you've been talking about, James. Maybe if you can take us into the admin and actually show us like where the permissions need to be set up and what decisions need to be made, and just kind of give us some ideas. I think you'll probably maybe need to do a separate video going into a little more depth to kind of show us everything, but maybe just give us a little bit right now to give us a sense of what's going to be on our plate here.
Sure. Luckily it seems to be pretty set up. We don't seem to have to do very much at the moment. Let me share the admin space. Can you guys see the admin space here on Slack?
Not right now. We're not seeing anything shared right now.
Can we see it now?
Yep.
Okay, so we see manage members on Slack. If we want to get to it, you're at, you would be, in your Slack workspace, you would come up to your United Interaction toolbar on the left-hand side. You would, settings and administration, manage members. This is what would come up, the menu. Again, settings and permissions. Manage members. Oh, sorry, I clicked this, so let's let it load. So this is just the overall settings and permissions page so that, since I clicked on it, you guys can just take a look at it. You can choose default channels. And again, this is just the overall for the workspace owner. So Jared, you would have something similar to this where you have explicit permission to come in here and change all of this. So channel management, we can, this is something pretty important. So this is where all of our communications happen. You see here, workspace admins and owners are the only ones that can change, create, add, remove postings. So as you can see, only the workspace admins and owners are those. So who are workspace admins at the moment? Those would be the executive team members. I don't know if Tatiana, if you've actually gone in there and changed permissions yourself. I know you're a workspace admin. So if you have any questions on this so far, Jared, on what you're seeing or how to get there?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. So let's go back to managing members. So when they join as a full member, and we'll see this pop up here momentarily. So as we can see, ICE2 here is a full member at the moment only. We see Cassidy, who's on the executive team, is a workspace admin. We have people who Edward, I assume is from the previous setup. And we have Hannah, who when we started setting this up, she set this up and she was set up as a workspace admin. We've tried, when we were trying our different experiments for setting up the 2 different emails, we have the account types, right? If we want to change the default account type, we go to the left-hand side here, we click the 3 buttons. We want to change the account type, workspace owner, workspace admin, full member. Once we subscribe for a paying account on Slack, which Jared, you're the only one as the workspace owner who can do that. That will allow us to go in under the permission space, which I showed you initially before I went to manage members. That is where we would see the whole range of permissions under the different type of channels, and that'll give us the more broad range of permissions that we were speaking about before. Does that make sense? I know that I'm switching back and forth, but this is specifically due to the email and individual, whereas if we go back to the permissions, that's more towards the functionality of the channel or the workspace, etc. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. So as people start joining or as individuals take different responsibilities or roles in the team, again, the Slack 1 email or the workspace admin members like Tatiana, as you add people or as they join, you can come in and change their account type to give them the different roles, or Jared yourself, or again, anybody with admin permissions can go in and change the permissions on their own accounts and not have to go through the Slack 1 or through the workspace. Excuse me, through the Slack 1 or through Jared's accounts as long as they have the account member as workspace admin or, workspace owner to change those permissions for everybody else. Is everybody following?
Yeah. So I guess the Slack one is just, it's another workspace admin, just like somebody else on the executive team.
Yeah, so this was the master email that we had started working with I want to say Johnny. No, not Johnny.
Anthony.
Anthony, yes.
Right.
So this is
Slack at unitingforaction.com, right?
correct.
Okay, got it. So again, the permissions for this account are as a workspace admin because there's
Yes.
only one owner, and that's me.
Yeah, so what I did was as soon as I set it up and I put you on, I changed this into a workspace admin, and I left you as the only owner. That way we wouldn't have any more issues as we did, and that way there's one person who could,
Okay, got it. So, okay, great. So at this point, in terms of like permissions that would have to be set at a granular level, can you give any kinds of examples of like what a research team leader would be doing to set permissions of different members, or what the work is going to look like for them to
So
do?
that would only happen once we start paying for the account, but I can give you sort of a, we can go back to the settings and permission page and you can kind of get a, let's see.
Yeah, explain to us how we'll use it once we do start paying for the account, because I'm still not clear. Like as far as I'm understanding it all, like here's Slack, here team, use Slack. And I don't know.
As of right now, because we don't have the full functionality of Slack as a paying member, there's not, the full range, and we haven't added all the apps that we possibly could. So we don't have, the workflow possibilities where we could go in there and add an actual task where somebody could say, okay, here's task 1, which could be a checklist for onboarding to Slack, right? So as soon as they get onto Slack, hit a check mark, and then that's a workflow, right? Or
and so we can't do any workflows right now. We have to pay.
That's a paid member add-on. So
okay, and that's by just paying for a standard version of Slack, right?
Correct.
For all our users, we're paying a per month user fee for all of our users to have the task function within our workspace.
Yes, sir.
Okay, got it. And then so once we have the task, then that's how we're talking about basically taking our to-do list and all the things that we're doing and using Slack to manage all the different tasks that we have and all the different assignments and tracking the amount of time and all of those sorts of things, right?
Correct. So that's where we start using all those functionalities. And then we have, the Slack bot responses where you can essentially in the task, in the chat box, you can use, keywords where I can give you an example here. Sorry, my internet's a bit slow here. Now, I myself am just starting to let me stop sharing here and I can, let's stick with one thing at a time, and then I'll show you the other functionality of like how Slackbot would work, and then we can actually track time from that task box. So, I can, write TT start time, and then it would start tracking my time from that task box directly to James, right? Or directly to whatever my screen name is, right? So that whenever I start tracking my time, I can do it directly from Slack. So that's one functionality of Slackbot. So my workflow.
I didn't really follow that. You're saying that by typing TT, it automatically triggers something to start tracking your time automatically.
So TT start time would start tracking my time if we were using tracking time application.
Okay, so that's like a command line statement
Yes.
that you just made, that once you have this installed app, then Slack recognizes that as reserved names that do something within that specific TT or whatever the initials are for the application you're using. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I can show it to you under my James Rios account. It's just that I don't want to jump around too much while I'm showing you different things. It's just, stay on track, right? So this is the workflow creation for permission, where again, if we had the paid, we could go specifically which individual, any owner, admin. I could also, include, by clicking down here, I could say Tatiana could create a workflow, any guest could or could not create a guest flow, or maybe ISA2 would be specifically the only person in our whole group that would be able to create workflow permissions. And then again, once you start paying, you would have a larger set of actual permissions. And then I can show you here. Is everybody seeing the Slack support page?
No, we're seeing the same page still.
I'm gonna stop sharing for a second.
Yeah, this is really great what you're showing us, James. This is exactly what I wanted you to show us, which is to help us understand like where to go with this. Because I don't know if Tatiana and Isatu have been tuned into all of what you're sharing, but this is all new to me.
So, and then let me start sharing again here. So are we here? Okay. Do we see the workspace setting permissions? All right.
We're in the help center now.
So then here, we've got now define the workflow permissions. Enterprise, here we go. Here we go. Just to, stay with what we were talking about. This gives me a good, no. So yeah, this is more readable. It doesn't give you an actual image, sort of, side by side, which individuals get what permissions. But this is a little bit of a breakdown, who gets to automate what set of tools, what members get to do what, which members don't. And again, in the help center, the permissions page will give you a much better breakdown of what the permissions would be than I could, sit here colloquially tell you of what they are and what they're not. But that it's all there.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is great. This is very helpful in terms of where to go with our attention and figure out what to do. So it's really around the workflow builder is where we want to put our attention within Slack at this point.
Yep. And then let me see here. Let me just, and I just want to give you the example before we run off of the tracking time, how it would work. Okay, so for some reason, it's not showing up my apps. All right, maybe I won't be able to give you an example because the apps aren't showing up. So I don't know if it's some sort of connectivity issue, but none of my apps are showing up on the workspace right now. So that might have to wait.
Do you have to
Sorry.
be, it's okay. Do you have to be James R instead of James Rios? Is that maybe the one that you set it up with?
So, oh, that might be it actually. So this is Slack 1. This is James Rios. Well, this is vaccine considerations. Active online.
Why don't you keep working on it, James, while we kind of wrap up
Yeah, go ahead.
everything with the agenda here, since we're getting close to the end of the meeting. Any questions or comments, Tatiana and Isa too, about anything James has been sharing with us so far around Slack?
I guess the only thing is it's a matter of us just like fully exploring it ourselves just so we get a better handle of it.
Okay. So yeah, I figured it out real quick. Sorry.
That's okay.
All right. So, and wrong one here. All right. Oh, do we see the? Let's share my screen. There we go. Okay. So essentially, this is how we would want to start. You know, I already started tracking my time. You know, I've got, can you see here where my mouse is?
Yeah.
So I did, you know, it's / TT space. Now I want to stop tracking time. So if I want to start tracking time, I hit start time. I'm going to stop time. You know,
Got it.
I stopped my time. So essentially, this is where we would want to end up for tracking time. The application tracking time is on another, you know, web, you know, portal or another application that's got essentially what is it, a data screen, a data set where that's just tracking the time for James Rios, you know, clocked in at this time, clocked in at that time. It's really simple. And that's how much time I've worked on this task.
And then tracking time keeps track of like what task you're working on and it adds it up with the other times that you and others worked on that same task, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so that's where the functionality of tracking time comes in, so that whoever is that go-to admin person has to go in there and set all those, you know, all those functionalities up, like what tasks is going up, what is the project, what is being done, what isn't being done. And that's what I was trying to avoid, because we have those workflow functionalities on Slack. You know, if we're building those tasks on Slack, why would we go in there and build it in tracking time? So we're almost doing double the work and paying tracking time just to track the time. And do you get where I'm going with this?
Yeah, that's very important information to know. So I'm glad it's finally coming out now. We need-
So that's what I've been trying to explore and trying to get familiar with how tracking time works, because if we're trying to take advantage of the full functionality of Slack and we're going to eventually pay for it, we don't want to get applications that we're also paying for and that we have to do double the work to pay for double the features.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So let's look at everything in terms of let's go back to the agenda, see what else is there, what everything on our plate is for the week and how we should divide up our time. I apologize, we only have one more minute until 12:30. Are you guys okay if we go over a couple extra minutes to figure out who's working on everything? Works for you, Tatiana? How about you, Isa, too? James, is that gonna
Yeah, I
be
got a few more minutes.
okay? Great. Isa 2 has class in 10. Okay, so we will finish up as quickly as we can here. So the onboarding doc is what we had next.
Yes, that was just who would update the onboarding documents, especially if we move on to Slack. And then that kind of understanding the process of incorporating it for new members.
Okay, I think we can talk about that in the chat to get that sorted out. I don't think we have to cover it right now in the short amount of time we have left. Let's yeah, were there specific things that you guys had in mind for any new ideas or work to be shared? No, James, Isa 2, anything else that you guys want to add? No? Okay, so yeah, I think the onboarding document is important. I think let's definitely continue to address that in the chat. I think, looking at what we have on the table for this week, focusing on the further looking into our tracking time options and our kind of management of getting people on board with the Slack system. So it's essentially going to be like creating sample workflows, doing some like recording of those videos, sharing those sample workflows with all of the team leaders, and then letting them start to create their own workflows to manage the tasks within each team.
There are also great tutorials on Slack that show how to build the workflows, and they're, from what I can tell, they're a lot less complicated than a lot of these other tracking apps, because they want you to build these sort of like timekeeper spreadsheets and basically all these data spreadsheets that for what are they called, for payroll purposes, whereas that's not really what we want. We just sort of want something that we can create our projects and just see who's working on what for how long, right? And that's been my perspective.
Right. Okay, great. So do you have some other resources that you haven't shared with us yet that you'll share with us around all of that, James? Or do we have it all in our Google Docs somewhere, or where is all that info?
Everything that I have, I've already put together and it's been sent out to you guys. And I've just, again, it's just resources off of Slack itself.
Okay, and you're talking about, when you say resources to you guys, it's what went out in the email to everybody on the team? Okay, great. Okay, great. So I think at this point then, Isa 2 and Tatiana, I think let's go ahead and let's look at the hours that we all have available this week. So Isa 2, you have 10 total that you're dividing up. You're imagining 3 for business. James, you have 5 total, and I guess it's pretty much all going to be in business, although you have some hours that you are devoting to the what you have to do for the FDA advisory committee as well, James. How are you managing all of that? Those hours are coming out of your 5 entirely, or how are you trying to balance your hours?
Well, I mean, most of that presentation's already done. It's just a little of, I guess, admin and editing, so it shouldn't take too much time away.
Okay, so you feel like you've got pretty close to what you're going to read as the script or go over in your 3 minutes in there already?
Yeah.
Okay, So, okay, good. And Tatiana, you've got 5 for the week. And so you've got 2 in recruitment and then 3 in business. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Oops. Okay, so I guess with you and ISA 2 having 3, James close to that. Let's put 3 for James just to be safe. Or we'll say 4 if James is confident he's got time. I would say let's spend at least ISA 2 and Tatiana, because you haven't gotten into it yet, at least an hour starting with James' document comparing the tracking time, different types of apps out there, and also what can be done within Slack. And then James, I think, let's make it a bit of a collaborative process where we're kind of going back and forth, because I think, James, you can you can choose your top 3 choices or help guide us. But I think if we can be in more of a, hey, I found this, what do you think about this? Sharing back and forth, that can probably be, more of a brainstorming type of thing. I think that can probably be a more efficient use of our time to kind of synergize with each other. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think so, because again, it's about those functionalities, and you could spend hours and hours just trying to figure out which one is going to have, the best fit. And, we could end up with time tracker situation again, where we're almost ready to pull the trigger and be like, we're paying for double the functionality when we really don't need all that.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's, does it work for everybody in terms of your current schedule that we can say that we're all going to put that hour in between now and our team meeting on Thursday? Or what I'd like to try to figure out is how can we be at a further point on Thursday? How can we say something to the team? I wonder if we can even, maybe we as a business team can do our vetting and that sort of thing between now and like Thursday morning or something like that. And then Thursday during the day, we can be going back and forth and WhatsApp about, what our recommendations are or something like that. And then maybe have like a 5-minute presentation to the team on Thursday, kind of giving the team some direction about where we're going to go with all of this. Do you guys feel like we could be that far along by Thursday?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
I think, what I'm describing, I think would be somewhere in the range of, 2 to 3 hours or something like that, which is, I think, kind of along the lines of what you guys have available for the team this week. And I think that's the most important thing right now, is to get us clearer on the apps, and also setting us up for how we're going to use the workflow. So I think that's the other thing is, James, with your time, you can again help provide guidance, tutelage to ISA 2 and Tatiana directly, or in some tutorial videos or what have you, to be able to help them understand how to set up the workflows and use them. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So does everybody feel good about that and what we have to work on, and very clear about how to spend our time on behalf of the team this week? Okay, thumbs up from you guys, thumbs up from ISA 2 too. Okay, great. Awesome. Anything else then before we wrap up, or did we cover everything we need to? Okay, awesome. Thank you again so much, James. We really honor and appreciate you. It's been great to have you here, and we can't wait till you're back with us.
Thank you again for everything, guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, guys. See you later. Have a great day. Bye-bye.